Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kara here with another Ace video, and in today's video it's going to be the start of a series breaking down how to beat all of these dungeons. So first one is going to be Ash, and this is going to be a long one, so timestamps down below, break it down on where you want to go. We're going to talk about the best heroes, the mechanics of the fight, and team comps at the end, plus gear stats, stuff like that. So all the timestamps are linked down below. Also was lucky enough to get Darth Micro here on the call here, so no webcam here going forward. I just didn't want to worry about blocking anything when we were recording the video, so let's get into it. Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kai here, back with another Ace video, joined once again with DM.
Hello.
So we're gonna be breaking down how to beat Ash 12, and we've been doing the dungeons for a few weeks now, so I think we got a decent amount of comps, because in the beginning it was a little frustrating because it seemed very character based. Like there's only a few characters that seem good, whereas now I think people have practiced enough and tried enough comps out to where it's not so, you're not so forced in only a few characters. So I think it'd be nice to be able to break this down and kind of help people out with getting through and beating Ash 12.
So where do you want to start then?
Okay, so I was thinking we start with the mechanics of the boss and break that down first, and then we can to help explain why these characters work. Okay, so the first move, like this is his passive. So at the end of every round, he's going to summon 5 fire amps. He can only be triggered once per round, and then I believe actually beginning of the round, and then auto attack is deals damage to an enemy and calls a joint attack from all fire amps. So when he actually does this, he has so many other moves that this is his last priority, but this is, you really want to be able to kill these fire imps for multiple reasons, but this is one because he's going to join attack with all of them. So essentially that's a wipe if you don't kill the fire imps. Then
yeah, it's a wipe unless you have like a really cheesy mechanic, which basically no one's gonna have.
Exactly, or like maybe 2 are left or something like that. You know, sometimes that can happen. Like I've still won runs where it's like 1's remaining or 2's remaining, and then you barely survive, and then you kill him, kind of thing. Then he has Flame Bomb, which deals damage to an enemy and applies Flame Bomb for 3 turns. It's a debuff that when the target dies or your character dies that has the bomb or the countdown expires, deal true damage to all enemies and inflict stun on the target for 1 turn, which is essentially a wipe. You really got to cleanse this off or have enough DPS to be able to kill him before the 3 turns, which is very hard to do. It used to be before the patch, you were able to target exactly where this went every single time, whereas that mechanic is gone. So if you see any older videos where they say to target this on the character based on the first slot of your team, that is not true anymore ever since that buff or that change happened. So
I will say there's one thing about this, which is that it's not smart enough to target people that don't have immunity. So if you do have immunity and it targets it, it just won't land the buff or just won't land the bomb. So you can, immune will work against it. And
yes.
Blackhorn obviously removes it, and he was the guy from the Battle Pass.
Yeah, so it's great that we were able to get him, and then Blackhorn got buffed, so him being able to remove it, he's probably going to be one of the most popular characters at removing this debuff here. And then Flame Vortex, so deals damage to all enemies, recovers 150% of damage dealt as health, and then grants a bonus turn at the end of the round. This was something that's interesting, is you can't put unhealable on him. He's still going to heal because this is considered lifesteal. So just keep that in mind. If you're annoyed by his healing from this, there's really no way around it. You just have to kind of deal with it. There's no debuff you can apply. And then lastly, this is another reason why you really need to clear the imps, is because Sacrificial Cannon normally does a decent amount of damage, but if there's surviving fire imps, then converts 50% of his health into 500% bonus damage to Sacrificial Cannon attacks. So it's essentially going to wipe you if you leave up these fire imps for a couple reasons. So in the beginning of this, he has all of these moves up. He just prioritizes Flame Vortex, and then he goes into Flame Bomb in the beginning. Then if he's going to do the Sacrificial Cannon, so you have 2 turns to be able to kill the fire imps in the beginning, but then throughout the rest of the encounter, you're not going to have that leeway there of having a couple turns to be able to survive this. He's always going to have something that's going to be triggering those imps. So now that we kind of,
do you believe there is a viable strategy to keeping the imps alive, or is it pretty much the majority of this is where you're trying to kill the imps and keep him from killing everyone?
I would say for the most part, unless you're doing an unkillable strat with Mary or Celestial Cane, because he does remove 50% of his own health. So I've seen people do it where they do some damage, they put Invincible up and AoE Invincible, he takes 50% of his own health. Your Invincible take the damage, or take 0 damage from that, and then you try to kill him before he can kill you. Me personally, I think that's not an ideal strat, but it definitely can force you there, especially if you're manualing it. I think it's really hard to pull that off if you are autoing it.
Makes sense.
Okay, so now we kind of have an idea. The roles that we're going to be looking for in this are essentially, you got to have good damage. Obviously, you're going to be trying to do AoE damage to kill the imps. We need to have some way to cleanse the bomb, and good single target damage. And then probably some support for healing or some kind of utility for the team. That's pretty much the main roles when it comes to this. So if you've seen some team examples, that's what we're looking for here. So a lot of popular ones. Let's kind of run through some of the most popular ones. I would say the best one to start with is probably, if you have her, she's an epic. Let me find her.
Nathalia? We talked about Nathalia.
Yeah. So Nathalia.
Easily one of the best. Nathalia is going to be hard to beat. I mean, she's got to be the MVP of the dungeon for sure.
Yes, if you have her, there's like she alone is good enough to justify talking for a while about, in my opinion, because of how she's consistently doing AoE. She's great at being able to clear the waves and does a decent amount of damage to the actual boss herself. So how she works is normally everything's single target with her moves here, but you can combine her with her passive here. For every positive effect this character has, their ability affects one extra enemy. So goal is going to be trying to get as many buffs on her as possible, so she constantly AoEs even with her auto attack and her ult. And then her ult does 180% damage, which is pretty high for an AoE move. And then her auto attack is 100% damage, and it gives her a random stat up, so it really synergizes well with her passive. And then she has another passive here on her A2, which applies attack up and immune for 2 turns if this character is buffed by a positive effect at the start of their turn. So she needs a buff early, and then if she already has a buff, then she'll proc her Arcane Ward passive, give herself 2 more buffs, so then she'll be able to hit at least 3 targets there, and she gives herself attack up and immune. So if she's the one that's targeted by the bomb, she's just going to cleanse it right off the bat there. So she brings so much to the team.
Buff early, buff often?
Yes. So characters you're going to want to synergize with her are going to be William and Bran. Those are, or you can build a guard set on her and she'll be able to buff herself. You're not going to need any support there. She's going to be immediately proc that passive for you there. So great character. If you have her, you're definitely going to want to put her in. There's really no reason not to if you have her. Also, when you ascend her, she gets even better. Like probably one of the biggest ascension effects in the game, like from a impact standpoint, which is for every positive effect this character.
Don't you think, right?
Me personally, when I built her, I was able to use this ascension effect. I'm assuming it would have to be pretty crazy, right? You mean, like the damage difference has to be insane.
I would think that without this, maybe you don't use her, but it's hard to say for sure because I don't use her with it. But it feels like it feels mandatory anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just gonna be a gear. Obviously it's just gonna be a gear difference. I think she still beats out alternatives even without it, but for the most part, obviously you're gonna want it. And it only takes 2. It's not like she's a 5/1, which I think is good.
True.
So for every positive effect this character has, their abilities affect 1 extra enemy and damage increased by 10%. So if you compare that to all the other ascension effects in the game, like the increase by 10% is pretty nuts. So very good character. Another very popular like staple character in this is going to be William. I think any content you're looking into, most people recommend William for it. And the things he's going to be bringing are a combination of allows the basic attack to do either 50 or 80% damage depending on how far you have him ascended, and he's doing counterattack, which is great. And then also not only that, but he's calling in other people to randomly assist. So amazing character.
He works really well in tandem with Nathalia.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Because this counterattack stack, it just sits on Nathalia until it's procced. So it constantly proc Nathalia's A2 if you have this on her, which I think is pretty cool. So you're not worrying about once the counterattack stack is on, it's going to last the whole time. You'll be able to help clear waves in the beginning, and you'll be able to help clear the fire imps when you actually get to the boss. So, and it allows you to turn off Nathalia's ult and just auto attack, and it's going to do the same damage. While also the benefit there is going to be you're gaining a buff every time, whereas when she ults, she doesn't give a buff. So that's why being able to turn off Nathalia's ult in combination with William is really strong. Okay.
Good point right there, because I've never actually done that myself.
Boom. There it is.
Learning something new as we
go. Okay. Next, I would say, let's talk about some accessible characters here. Okay. I'm thinking Blackhorn.
Blackhorn's one that's in the Battle Pass, and I think is probably the most accessible one, yeah, for sure. The problem with the legendaries in this game is it's so like, did you get that one? Did you get that one? Which, I mean, most people have got like a few of them, you know, so it's hard to say, well, it's this legendary or bust. But I mean, the other ones we mentioned are pretty accessible too. Like, I feel like they're epics. Like William's an epic, you know, Nathalia's an epic, and we are talking about like it is stage 12, so this is sort of like the in-game farming. So I think it's pretty realistic to expect people to have you know, a number of certain characters anyway at this point to be able to beat the content. Like, is there any? Let's think about this here. What's the most accessible hero other than Blackhorn that you can use in this thing?
I would say like Hydries is good. Molex is good. But you're gonna want a combination of these guys. It's like you can't. You're gonna need some heroes that are not free to play friendly. I don't think there's a full free to play friendly team for this.
Yeah, it's hard to say in this game whether or not something's free to play friendly if it just has like one legendary, two legendaries, and a couple epics. Because especially with the Ascension on it, like I don't think you need the Williams Ascension. Like I think you can do away without the Ascension, but you know it helps. It's the same thing with Nymphalia. Like you kind of need hers.
Yeah, I think they definitely help. It's just gonna require more gear. It's like, okay, you're missing this. Okay, you're probably gonna have to sit at stage 11 a little bit longer, stage 10 a little bit longer until you can actually get the gear to do it. Now that they did buff it to where stage 11 only drops 5 and 6, so it's not that big of a deal comparatively how it used to be of being stuck in stage 11. So if you're in that situation, just farm stage 11. It's really not that big of a deal.
That's true. They did make it that it's just slightly better drop rates is all 12 is, but it drops the same stuff.
Yeah, which I like, because before it was such a brutal drop off if you didn't beat 12. So reason why Blackhorn's good is mainly it's going to be his A1 attack down on the boss helps you survive longer, and then Nature's Shield is he puts a totem down, and then at the end of the round he's going to cleanse off and heal. So now that we can't target where the bomb goes, just having an AoE cleanse is great, and it will allow you to cleanse the bomb. You don't have to worry about it. What I like about Blackhorn is
it doesn't die too, not to like cut you off, but like the totem, it doesn't really die because it takes 3 instances of AoE damage, which just doesn't really happen in the you know, in the dungeon. So it's once you have the totem up, like you're pretty much good.
So, and then if you can clear the other things, like Blackhorn is great because if you can handle the imps and you heal enough and you're tanky enough, then it doesn't matter like what your damage is. Eventually you'll kill them. It's just the runs are going to be long. You're just gonna have to consistently be able to clear the fire imps. Whereas
that was how my first runs were. It just took a while, and as long as I could get Blackhorn on the field to stay alive, and as long as I get the imps down, we're good. And that's really where Nymphalia was MVP for me.
Okay, well, what do you think the next character? What's the next hero?
It gets pretty rough here, man, because I mean, at this point, I think I'm gonna start suggesting stuff that is like not free to play friendly. Like I want to mention Brand, because I think
Brand's great.
I think Brand works fairly well in tandem with the Nymphalia pick as well. Because the problem with Nymphalia is, in order to use her ult, which I was using her ult from the get-go, was that you kind of needed a buff. So I had the buff going with the ult, and then it was enough to have the passive go, where when she already has a buff, she gets the additional buff or whatever, and then that plus the ult, the additional targets would happen, and I could basically, from the beginning, hit all of the people and clear through all of the wave and get to the boss basically without anyone else's turns having happened. So that way I can keep all the cooldowns up.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Like I really liked having Brand too. In my first clear that I had, I was using Brand a lot because it really without a guard set, he's very useful. Even if you have William, I still liked having Brand too
Yeah.
because in the beginning William won't buff her, so that first wave is kind of rough. So you have Bran go through. So I completely agree. I think he's great for this. Yeah, he's not only just helping out Nathalia, so this character is just good in general. If you have other characters that are good damage dealers, he's just going to help him out by making
Well,
him
the
more
counterattack
survivable.
helps a ton too. Like the
Yeah.
attack down, like because Blackhorn's attack down isn't like really that consistent, as I'm sure you know. So
Uh-huh.
the problem with it is, I feel like if I Brand, however, is fairly consistent. I mean, you get the counterattack every time, and then you get the attack down every time as long as he's
Well,
booked. So
it's 80%. So it just happens so often that I feel more confident with him for the attack down than I would with Blackhorn.
oh yeah, it is 80%, isn't it? Because it's not 50 and 50. Was it 50 and
It's
50 and
50%
30?
damage, 100% chance to counterattack, and then a
Yeah, that's
50% damage with an 80% chance.
oh,
So
that's weird. Yeah, no, it is 80. You're right.
yeah, it happens so often though because he's mainly doing AOE damage. So unless you lose like 80% chancers in a row, so he's gonna apply it, and then you also get the defense up too and the attack up too. So a great character for this. I would say he gets way better on the team with Nathalia, but even if you're not running Nathalia as your damage dealer, still
How about
fine.
Connor? How about like Connor and Zachary? Like
I
some
was thinking,
classic.
I don't like Zachary. I don't think he does enough damage. I think the big thing when you're looking at the AoE damage, you need to have water characters because you get the 50% affinity bonus, and they just don't do enough. They're not survivable
Yeah,
enough, and
get
they
that.
just don't do enough damage. I think the characters that, if you don't have Nathalia, I would say the two main ones are going to be characters that you could choose from the beginning, in your free pulls or whatever, or your beginner pulls. It's going to be Hydri and it's going to be Molex, and then hopefully you have one or the other, or you're going to be running this. But reason why Hydri's good is just good AoE damage. All her moves are AoE. It's just she just has really low modifiers. You want to combine her with
Yeah.
someone else.
My problem
Um,
with Hydra was when I was using her, like it wasn't consistent enough. Like I couldn't consistently wipe out the minions in order for it to be. It was like the problem with Sierra I had when I was using Sierra in here. Was that yes, it does damage. No, it's not enough to clear. So the problem was, I mean, maybe I just need better gear or something, but I felt like if Hydressa did clear one or two times, she wouldn't clear the next time by
Well,
herself.
she needs support. Like she's
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
and so like I think great support with her is Mulhex because it kind of shores up a lot of her issues. So he is gonna be doing AoE damage. So he has this deals 100% damage to all enemies. If this character has attack up, then launches a bonus attack. So he's gonna be giving himself attack up. If you're pairing him with another character that gives attack up, that works out well. So he's gonna be giving up everyone on his team attack up. He also does defense down, so it helps out in
like
doing more
that.
damage to
Yeah.
the boss. So not only is he supporting Hydri with the AoE, but then he's supporting Hydri and giving her more damage. So I like him a lot in that pairing there. Especially if you don't have Nathalia, I would, and you have these characters by chance, then I think that's good, and actually doable. Let's speed run through a couple characters here. So another one that I think is good for damage, especially single target, is going to be Sierra. Really helps. Not only does she have passive AoE with her passive here, but then she helps out everyone doing more damage with her auto attack with the increased damage taken, and she has a really good ult that does a ton of damage. She's amazing for this. Technically, every account gets her, but that's going to be way longer in the game. So essentially, she's a pay-to-play character in my opinion. You just got to get lucky to pull her. And then the last one I really wanted to touch on, not necessarily the last one, but there's a couple more. So we have Santis. I think Santis is fantastic. Probably going to be your go-to character for doing the most damage and actually beating the boss. Is going to be her because she's fusible, and then she just does such a good job of applying poisons, especially if you can put her in a curse set to be able to attack multiple times. This is my favorite character in just finishing off the boss because of just how reliable it is to put a ton of poisons on the boss and kill him. And she's easy to gear too because you don't need to actually build damage. She has good base
Right,
stats.
Santis. I've been
Yeah.
sitting here thinking it's like Santis we haven't even gone over at all. And you're right, that is a pretty solid choice. I'm seeing here actually autoing through this, and like while I'm autoing it, I'm just sitting here watching like Nathalia just be the god that she is, and I'm wondering, it's like I wonder if now that I've got better gear, I could go back with some of these other heroes, like you're saying, it's a gearing thing, because The only way I was able to get it done was Nathalia. I think my gear was quite bad, but Santis has been, the good thing about her too is she's kind of MVP in a lot of dungeons. Like if you build her, she's going to be good, and that's probably the best recommendation of that. And William too. So I guess you could probably build people like Blackhorn, William, Santis. Like, where can we use Nathalia outside of this one dungeon?
I mean, like Void Tower, like when it comes to clearing campaign, like Nathalia is used. Yeah, Nathalia is easily arena even. You know, like she's amazing.
Yeah, you're right. Everywhere. You're right. She's used. I was just sitting here thinking.
So then, also Marion Shadowblood's great character for this.
Oh, dude, that's another. You're right. You got some good. You got some good mentions here. I'm liking.
Thank you. So
these are all like some pretty 900 IQ plans.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So
subscribe to Kyr Mobile.
Oh yeah, exactly. You know, be sure for more Ace content. Okay, but the reason why you want to have, so we covered the AoE characters, but you want to have this one character that kind of pushes you over the edge and killing him, because a lot of times, even if you have the healing and sustain, you're not going to last the whole time. You're eventually going to run out of steam unless you just have it way over geared from a survivability standpoint. But no one wants to sit there for 15 turns every run and beat it. You know, so having the characters like Marion, having the characters like Santis are a good way to make sure you actually finish it in a reasonable time. So you're not just sitting there forever. Okay. But now that we got
White Sir Nick, is White Sir Nick and Evelyn first on? I mean, these are all some very free to play heroes we should mention.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I haven't gotten them to work. I have them, and like I think Nick would be trash for this, and then so probably Eve is probably not too great either. So you know, if you haven't pulled them, you know, it's fine for Ash. Example teams here, so you can kind of get an idea of, now that you have an idea of how the boss works, what characters are good for this. Here's some example teams. So here's one that's kind of safe. You got William, you got Nathalia, Santis to actually kill the boss, and then Blackhorn to cover all the cleansing. William's great for being able to do extra damage with the counterattack and be able to call people into assist. And he synergizes well with Nathalia to really trigger her passive. This team, I think, works either way, whether you have a guard set or not. On Nathalia, because you have time for her to ramp up and do her passive, you have 2 turns to be able to clear the imps in the beginning. I turn off her ult for this. Whenever you have William on here, I always turn off her ult.
I mean, my tip for me, that I'd never even thought of that, but it's gonna make things a lot easier.
Yeah, because there's times if you don't kill him fast enough, what will happen is she'll run out of buffs, and then you won't clear out all the imps. She won't AoE them all. So ideally, you'll just have them beat before them. A couple other things, as your gear gets better, and you actually do good damage. Like what I do is you run this team here, and I just don't even bother cleansing the bomb. He'll just die before that happens. You know, you need pretty good gear, and you're going to want everyone with 100% crit rate that actually matters for, so it's consistent, especially if you're autoing this. I like this. You can also, instead of Santis, I like Santis a lot more than Marion, but you could also do Marion in place of Santis.
I like Santis better also.
Yeah, and Santis is easier to get. It's like she's easier, she's fusible, she's more useful in other teams.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, so just another idea there. And then there's also things I've seen on Discord. If you go to the actual Awaken KSR Discord, a lot of people post about this. It's a pretty good resource to kind of give you guys some inspiration on, you know, look at what teams people are doing and then compare that to the characters you actually have. So there's a couple key points when it comes to stats that I think are very important to discuss. First one being speed, and you need to be at least over 140 for every character. There is ways to kind of cheese it and be slower, but unless you're doing a specific strategy where you're okay with going slower than the boss, by all means. But for the most part, if you want to go faster than them, which I think makes everything run a lot more smoothly, you want everyone to be 140. It's a little tough on certain damage dealers to get enough damage and the speed up to 140 to be able to kill the fire imps. So just keep that in mind when building your damage dealers, and I'll fully glyph them, because a lot of damage dealers at the very end, you'll be able to get like 20 speed on the final on the gold glyphs. Also, speed sets help. So as you progress through this, you'll be able to, I don't have like actual direct speed on this build. It's just all the speed substats from having the Raider set pieces with good damage rolls. So also, I highly recommend on your damage dealers to have 100% crit rate, especially if you're going to be autoing it. If you want consistency, especially on the damage dealers when it comes to this, because the damage is so important. Not only does it need to land, it always needs to crit, because you can't leave any of the fire amps up. So I always try to make sure you have 100% crit rate. Then, especially when it comes to Nathalia, if you're doing guard set, I think the guard set's very important unless you're trying to run brand or something. Just try to make it work. You can run party of 3 and try to get some lucky drops when it comes to guard set. It's very hard to farm guard set in the beginning before you can get to Gemini Dragon. That's going to be a way late game thing, so guard set's a little tough. Unless just make sure you're doing as much party of 3 as possible and force the guard set. Even if I had to drop a lot of these stats, I totally would, as long as I didn't sacrifice the 140 speed and the 100% crit rate. If you can force that, make sure that happens, even at like 3600 attack and like 220% crit damage around there, you can significantly drop this. You don't need to be anywhere close to these stats to be able to do this and clear those waves. So keep that in mind. I really like the guard set. It adds a lot more versatility and it makes her a lot more reliable, and you don't have to worry about timing everything with other moves or bringing other characters specifically to make sure she procs consistently. So even if you drop a lot of damage, it's worth it because of just how good she is when she has one. Another thing is going to be anyone, this applies to anyone that's trying to apply debuffs. I recommend about 60% focus. So when it comes to these characters like Santis, when it comes to Sierra, stuff like that, that are landing debuffs that are actually important, especially like poisoners, 60% focus would be my minimum to be able to land all that. And it's going to make the runs a lot more reliable, especially on attack down characters, defense down characters, stuff like that, that you're relying on extra damage. Put it at least 60% and you'll see them apply significantly more. And then lastly, when it comes to survivability, I would try to shoot for like 1300 defense and like 16k health. You don't need anything absolutely insane, but pretty much you just want, like, a good rule of thumb is going to be having your main stats, like these are not the gear pieces I would use for Ashe ideally. It's just have this leveled because you get so much flat defense on the chest piece, but then have the entire bottom row all defensive stats if you can swing it. If you can't, you need some speed, then ideally you'll have some kind of health or defense percentage roll on there to help you out and make them tanky enough to be able to survive. So you, like, I would say +9 or +12 depending on how few characters you have. If you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel of the good available characters, you're going to need to bump the gear up. That's going to be the sacrifice between having bad characters versus still trying to take this on. If you have all the good characters, then great, you don't need as much gear, but it's all possible. Regardless, it's just going to take a lot more grinding and a lot more tuning if you don't have some of the premier characters for this. Okay, and then another thing too is going to be set bonuses. So we have a few good ones. When it comes to poisoners, my favorite by far is cursed sets. These are farmed in Queen of Tides or Party of 3, or there's a stage and campaign that also drops it too. So the actual gear requirements for cursed set, especially on poisoners, is very low. So you could just farm this in campaign. I believe it's chapter 10 drops cursed set, and then you could have a character that's pretty good. And then eventually when you get Queen of Tides, you'll have significantly better cursed sets, but you don't need anything too crazy. That's what's really nice about Santis. But that curse set comes in super clutch if you're trying to apply a lot of poisons fast. And then another really good set is going to be the set you're actually farming. It's going to be the Avarice set for your AoE characters. If you're going to be bringing in Sierra, if you're going to be bringing in Hydri, then having these Avarice sets are going to be fantastic. To what they do is they increase your AoE damage by 50%. So if you have a good roll on them, try to force that set to help you clear those fire imps. So those are the two key sets, I think, in my when it comes to this. And lastly, we've talked about it a lot, but the guard set, specifically for Nathalia, is great too to proc her passive. So that's pretty much it when it comes to sets. Hopefully that helped, guys. We're gonna end it here. A couple examples of how to beat this. Anything you want to close out on this video?
I think that really what people are going to be looking for when they click on this video is two things. They're going to want to know the formations of the team, and they're going to know what champions. Okay. And I think that we covered that. Yes, there is certain champions that are key. There is other ones that can be used and variety in placement, but for the most part, yeah, Nathalia is a big one.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us. You guys have a good one. Peace.